Us, abandoned ship. We're not caring about this car. We're thinking about the next year.
Exit clauses, yada yada yada.
Hulkenberg is the blue shell right now. Angle grinder guy, he gets a raise.
There you go.
Whoa.
He gets both salaries.
There you go.
What are they doing with the 5th and 6th seats?
Yeah, it's just Weenie Hut Formula One Junior now.
They don't fire up the same way that F1 cars do.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast. I think we may be rebranding to the Apex GP podcast, the Sunny Hayes fan club. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We've had a couple of weeks off. We had a couple of down weeks here. Justin was talking about seeing the F1 movie. I also saw the F1 movie. So looking forward to chatting about that a little bit. We had the Goodwood Festival of Speed. We had some IndyCar races, some NASCAR, all sorts of stuff. And then most recently, we had the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. So very exciting episode to get into here. But Justin, it's good to see you. Like I said, it's been a little bit here.
Dude, and it feels like I've come out of the time warp, man. Seeing you, you're all tan and buff. It's sun's out, guns out. You're looking like a different person. The summer break definitely looks good on you. Yeah, it feels crazy. We have so many weeks of motorsport that have gone on. I would argue two of the sickest tracks this past weekend between Laguna Seca and Spa. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a packed episode here, depending on how much of the shenanigans we want to get into. But yeah, I'm excited to get into all of it, and yeah, let's get going with some quick hitters.
Sounds good. So first quick hitter, I just wanted to get your feedback on the F1 movie. Personally, I enjoyed it a lot, but I wanna pick your brain, see what you liked, didn't like. What were your just overall review?
This is a theater watch with like a non-Formula One fan. Like that was the context of how I viewed the movie. It was really fun to like hear her audible reactions to like some of the more exciting moments. So that for me was like really enjoyable. I do believe it's a fun film to go to, especially if you're able to go see it in the theater. I think the soundtrack was a big get for me. I really like the infusion of the like UK grime. A lot of that I thought sounded really good. So yeah, from just like a visual spectacle, I mean, amazing. From a from like a movie perspective, I'm happy the way they ended it. Kind of tells me there's not going to be some weird follow along, like some sequel in the future. It feels like may just be like a one-off event, and that's probably where it's going to be best. But I'll tell you this, the one thing that really caught my eye that took me out as a Formula One fan, the tire warmer operators looked so sluggish and like awkward carrying them. Like honestly, everything else felt like for mostly felt like an F1 garage except for that. The tire warmer operators, they were like, "Oh god, what are these things?" But yeah, overall, really enjoyed my viewing. What were your thoughts?
No, so I'm with you, and I think like from just a person who enjoys a good movie perspective, like I was not looking. I didn't come into it looking at it with a technical eye, and I think the biggest takeaway that I had that maybe I didn't anticipate for myself was like my watching along felt very much like watching um another fictional sports movie. So like Friday night or fictional sports show, Friday Night Lights, or like whatever other fictional movie, or at least even if it's historical fiction, there is some sort of like um
Coach
Fiction.
Carter, Remember the Titans.
Yes, exactly. And
What
so
was that
watching
basketball
it,
anime you were watching?
oh,
These things.
yeah. And so like watching it from that perspective of like I'm not looking at it with a technical eye. Just like I wouldn't watch Remember the Titans and be like, "Oh, well, the left guard there actually didn't pick up the block properly and he would have been sacked." Like uh instead of looking at things like that, I'm like this is fun. It's a story, it's a narrative. I thought overall the story was like pretty fun and interesting, kind of light. There's a lot of good humor throughout the movie. But very good mix of emotions. I will say I was getting a little the emotions like were welling up in me a little bit when at the very end when everything kind of comes to that climax. Sonny and JP are kind of like bonding at the end and everything. I'm like, oh, this is just feel good. He just goes off into the sunset. I was like, that's perfect. I think there may end up being another movie. Like I guess unfortunately for you, but
Hmm.
I felt like they could just leave it as is. And overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. The cinematics were fun. I loved just how involved so many like just everyone was with it, from all the drivers on the paddock to Gunter to like the broadcasters and everything. Like it just overall it felt very F1, and it was fun to see some of the moments that had happened throughout the season, or the seasons that it was filmed, like be utilized in the film. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Last comment I'll say, speaking of like feeling like they're bringing elements of Formula One, I did lean over to my mom and be like, "That's Will Buxton. We like Will Buxton." That was just very cool for him to get like such a center
Yeah.
stage aspect. I was like, dude, he nailed it. Like, oh man, I loved seeing him in the film. In another conversation, the moment where Gunther Steiner like leans out the back of
Yeah.
the thing, like all wonderful moments. It really did feel like all right, what if they gave Drive to Survive like a massive budget and was like, yo, like go, because like that's kind of what it felt like. But man, all the all on track action felt really good. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the F1 movie. I'm glad you did too.
Yeah, so would definitely recommend watching. The only other comment, it was loud at the theater I was at. I don't know if
Oh
I'm just
word.
getting old, but it felt so loud. And I was like, this is a little overwhelming initially, but yeah, I would definitely recommend seeing it. I think it's coming back to IMAX later this year. I saw some stuff on Twitter about that. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, you still have those opportunities. Um, but to move along, we had the Goodwood Festival of Speed during this little break as well, which was cool. Seeing all the different cars that they run up the hills. I think it was an electric. The fastest time was set by an electric, like super Ford super truck, that ran the entire hill in like 41 seconds or something crazy like that.
Oh wow. Okay.
I think the second was like a Subaru that was like all blacked out, souped up, like really looked pretty sweet. So some really cool cars, and you see a lot of former drivers and just like different people going to this and being involved. Dua Lipa, musician, was actually rode along in one of the GT3 cars during their run up the hill and everything. Very pumped about being there and being able to be involved in the festival. Um, so just a really cool event that they do yearly, and seeing some of the older cars, old F1 cars, and mix of drivers, current and past, that are involved with the different teams and everything going through, is just a really cool event to check out.
Yeah, I imagine this is just a pun intended. I imagine one drive is all you would need to fall in love with racing, or something similar to this. One of my favorite things about the Goodwood Festival of Speed is always like the concept projects that people bring, where they're like
Mm.
not trying to like be competitive. They're just like, hey, this is this kooky car that we've built. Like let's run it up the hill and showcase it. So yeah, some of those cars are fun to see at an event like this. But I'm very interested in talking about some of the IndyCar races that we had, especially Laguna Seca. I know we had Iowa before that, so let's talk a little bit about Iowa.
Yeah, and so Iowa, I think the biggest thing was like to state from that was just Pato Award getting his first win of the season. He's been like right there in that top stretch. He's P2 in the championship currently and everything, and has been having a really great season. Unfortunately, just being thwarted by Alex Palou at every turn, it seems. But at Iowa, he gets the upper hand. There were a number of cautions throughout the race that kind of caused the strategies and whatnot of the front runners, like Alex Palou had been for a decent stretch of that race. Just unfortunately lose out due to some cautions and things like that gave cheaper pit stops to people like Pato Award. So gets the advantage, but holds on to it to take his first win of the season. Um, so a pretty strong year from Pato, and to get the win now under his belt for this year, I think that was pretty big, especially for not having one and still being second in the championship at that point. Pretty wild. So yeah, very strong year for him, and then a nice win there at Iowa.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, it just shows ridiculous consistency to be able to be P2 in a championship and not having got your first win until quite late in the season, as we'll talk about with Laguna Seca. Only I believe 3 races to go. And Pillow is like way out in front. I don't believe he clinches it there at Laguna Seca with the win, but he's like really close. I feel like I feel like it would, or what am I trying to say? I think he's ahead by 121, and there's like 150 or so points possible. So yeah, really tight margins for anybody on the attack there. But I just love the Laguna Seca track. It's probably one of the like best like turns in the IndyCar calendar. It's that corkscrew downwards, like down into down into another pretty tricky section. So I just love the track, and especially the drivers feel comfortable to race rather hard because we see
Mm.
gravel traps like all over the circuit, right? So if people are going off, mostly they're just getting caught in the gravel. As we saw on lap one of the race, we saw a number of drivers going off, create a lot of chaos on lap one. But yeah, I thought Laguna Seca was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, and very exciting. It's just one of those like super unique and kind of cool circuits that with the corkscrew and everything. Like it's so fun to watch. The only I guess not so exciting moment that I had watching it was when Marcus Ericsson was stuck on that blind hill and they just like waited for, and it was, you know, that it's like concerning when it's all the broadcast can talk about being like, why is there not a full course caution? Why is it just a local yellow flag with Ericsson stalled out there and these cars flying up this blind hill? Will Buxton, Hinchcliffe, like they're both like they need to like stop this race and put a full course caution out there. But yeah, very fun track otherwise, and unique circuit. Alex Palou was just super dominant. So very exciting to see. And I also forgot that we had two races in Iowa. So Alex Palou winning the second, and we also had Ontario where Pato O'Ward got his second win of the season. So we've had a lot of IndyCar since we last had an episode. So a lot to kind of remember and get through there. But yeah, Laguna Seca, very fun circuit to see these guys race on. Colleen, her only comment about it was like, it looks kind of like ugly. I'm like, well, we're driving. We're used to seeing these cars going around in Europe through something like Spa that's got forests and trees and all of these things around it, and then you're in Southern California. Like the desert vibe was in full effect for the race this past weekend in IndyCar. So that was kind of an amusing just sidebar that we had.
Sure, but honestly, like I feel like that's one of the underrated fun aspects of enjoying like especially international motorsport is you get all the different complexions of the regions that these circuits are hosted in. A lot of times where the circuit is creates some of the magic, some of the moments that like become the narrative around the circuit. So yeah, it's like a very different vibe than some of the other circuits that you may be used to, but in its own right, like honestly, I think it's quite a beautiful track. I really love that orange and tan that the desert has. So yeah, that's an interesting comment. And just last thing I'll say about this race, you know me, I always have a close ear on the broadcast team. I always love to hear I always love to hear what they have going on. There was a moment where Pelo's going for the overtake on the previous leader. The third caster, I believe his last name is Towson. I I don't know like for fact what's going on in the room, but it feels like he's looking down at a document talking about like some type of like technical something or other about like the vents on the car. And I know Will is just like doing one of these like wrap it up, wrap it up. He literally like, yo, Towson, I'm sorry, but like Pelo's going for the overtake, blah blah blah, and then he like casts, does the play by play, he actually makes it like pretty exciting. But it was so funny. He's literally just like sleepwalking into this point about vents. Like he's looking down. He literally looks up and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he just like lets Will Buxton go. I'm
Yeah.
like, bro, come on! Like it like this was the like defining moment of the race, right? Pelot goes on to
Yeah.
lead the race after this, and bro's talking about vents. I'm like, come on! But
Yeah.
again, my boy Will Buxton, he knows how to handle himself on the broadcast.
And his play by play is really clean. So I enjoy hearing that. But yeah, just one I guess final note for IndyCar, but Alex Palou obviously having a phenomenal season. He picks up his eighth win this past weekend, and with three races to go, the record for most wins in a season, which is currently 10, is still within reach to tie and potentially even go past if he wins in the next three races.
Oh
Um,
wow.
with how dominant he's been, I wouldn't put anything out of the question, but it'll be interesting to just keep an eye on and see how he does across the rest of the year. I think it's very close for the championship to be locked up, but still definitely some good driving left to see over in the IndyCar scene. Another good moment of racing was Bubba Wallace this past weekend winning in the NASCAR Cup Series at the Brickyard. Someone who's been around for quite a while, has had his highs and lows in NASCAR, but he is the first black driver to win a major race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval. So a pretty awesome highlight for him and his career. And one of those, it's fun seeing the different things, I guess, in racing, like after the finish line, like seeing Max drive by and giving thumbs up to the other drivers, like who have had good races, or them hopping out of their car and like patting each other on the back and everything. But in NASCAR, after Bubba wins this, as they're doing their like cool down lap around the track, the other cars are coming up and like bumping him to congratulate him, just like little like get up next to him, they're going slow, just like a little tap to the side and like go on their way, and then someone does it on the other side, and then someone bumps him in the back, and that's just their little like smack on the butt, like good game man kind of thing. They're just like
Whoa.
little bumps. I don't know how the engineers feel about it, but I thought that was kind of a cool thing to see after that race wrapped up, to see him going around and getting all these congratulate, because they're not in open cockpits, so you can't really see each other too well. So I guess
Right.
that's their way of giving a little congratulations and everything. So pretty
Wow.
amusing.
Rubbing is racing, and also rubbing is loving for your racing compatriots. That's awesome. And I bet it looks like really funny, just like fish like tapping each other, like going by.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Oh,
cool.
it was hilarious to watch. So
Damn,
yeah,
good for Bubba
very
Wallace. I'd love to hear that.
yeah, very cool there. But to move over towards F1 a little bit, looking at, there's been some of the new regulations have kind of come out for 2026, so there's more updates other than just engine regulations and all. But two of the kind of big things is that the next generation of cars, it doesn't seem are going to be as reliant on ground effect from the floors of the cars. So going back to more of that, like 2015 to 2021 kind of style with more flat floors, a lot of that downforce being created through the wings, the side pods, and everything. So a shift there, and then coming out of the Aston Martin and Honda camp, since they'll be partnering with Honda as their engine supplier in 2026. But they came out and said that the Honda power unit is fitting like a glove with their car. They feel very good about their transmission with the engine and everything. And so some bright news from the Aston Martin camp there, looking at the upcoming season with the Adrian Newey designed, or I guess involvement from Adrian Newey, whether it's all of his design or just kind of he's now taking over the project. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing how Aston does, and maybe Fernando can get another win under his belt after all these years.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty impressive. Yeah, as far as Aston Martin goes for 2025, yeah, I don't know that they're a team to pay attention to, but yeah, I think with some of these like really large, or that's like a weird way to say it, with these key personnel changes, one could easily see them being a more competitive team if the idea is like he brought so much to the Red Bull outfit.
Mm.
Yeah, you hope he's gonna have nothing but positive impact going into 2026.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how everything shakes out. We talked about how we have multiple testing sessions earlier in the season next year, so we're gonna get a good idea earlier than usual about kind of where some of the teams are looking, and how things are starting to shake out for next year. Um, but lots to look forward to. Um, Sliding over to the "Do You Work Here" segment, we do have a little bit of a bigger. Well, I'm sure most people who are out in the F1 world have heard about this, but bigger talking point of Christian Horner uh, leaving his duties, or being let go from his duties at Red Bull Racing. Um, uh, Laurent Mickey's from the Racing Bulls being brought on as the new CEO and team principal there, and that kind of major change within the Red Bull organization, with Christian Horner being out. This is the first team principal change that Red Bull has had with 20 years as a team. Christian Horner has been at the helm for all of them. So Laurent Mickey's coming in and taking that over. It was just I mean a huge transition, kind of unexpected. I think for a lot of people, there had been whispers here and there, but I didn't really anticipate going on to this couple-week break between races, and that's like the first news that comes out. So a pretty major shakeup for the Red Bull organization. And also being right when there's a lot of conversation about Max and kind of his future in Formula One. So, what were your initial thoughts when you heard Christian Horner being let go? And I guess since then, seeing the team now through one race weekend with Mickey's at the helm, what are your thoughts?
Just a sacrifice for the adrenochrome gangs, but for the like Christian Horner to Max conversation, because there was like a lot of talks that Christian Horner was involved in the media, kind of backing the Max contract, saying like, no, Max told me he wants to finish out his career as a Red Bull driver. I will be pretty honest with you. I really believed Christian Horner when he said that. So I thought it was odd where around a time where Christian Horner seemed to be telling a relative truth about like the state of the team and like Max's contract, right?
Mm.
Then to go from that situation right to like he's being let go. I immediately, as somebody who is quite smooth brain, I'm just thinking, man, why now? Like why in the middle of the season? That's interesting. But if you think about it a little bit more, like maybe the summer break, if you think about it, it's not really much longer than the winter break when you factor in like the close of the actual season, and then when testing starts, or like even when the responsibilities for the personnel would start. It's like, okay, well maybe this break is just as good as any other, and in reality maybe in the middle of the season, like it's probably better to do it now than any time. It's quite surprising. I wonder why there are no details like surrounding, like, it's like it's not like he murdered a unicorn. They called him and it's like, Christian Horner, like, you're gone. I'm sorry. Like, you can't do that. So it's not like there's something like that going on. So I just hope that it's kind of, maybe just time for new blood. He got them into and then through some of Max's like toughest fighting years. I mean, 2021 would have been a year that you could see even better men just taking a step back after, right? And
Mm.
he gave them a few more years. So yeah, like these are all the thoughts that I had, surrounding the personnel changes in that regard. But honestly, like he helped build one of the most compelling Formula One stories that we have, and he helped foster what is a lot of people's reason for watching right now, which is Max Verstappen. So, for better or worse, like these are all the things. These are all the things that I think of for to lead into like the Lauren Meckies and then the Alan Permain upgrade. Then for the Racing Bulls, I think they did okay, specifically especially on the Red Bull side. I don't know that a relatively simple changeable condition call, especially when it was like, I'm a guppy and it's obvious that the Lewis Hamilton pit is like the right move. How are you ruining a Q3 berth for Yuki on like a like yelling at him when he's at the pit entrance? Is this Lauren Mecky's fault? No. Could this happen with a Christian Horner? Yes, of course. But it is just like a thing that you can latch on to. That does this speak to just maybe just ripples in the a smoothness of conversations like through the
Yeah.
teams, maybe possibly, was it stellar? Probably not. But also, it's not like he was inheriting a two car winning every race team, right? Like
Right.
this weekend, easily could have happened like I said under a Christian Horner. So I think to give like some real eyes, I think you got to give them time. But the one thing that was really noticeable, and now Alan Permain has been working with the Racing Bull teams for a little bit, so it's just like an upgrade of position. But I think the Racing Bulls had a solid weekend, double Q3 berth, obviously not able to convert totally, but able to get some points. I'm pretty sure with Liam Lawson, I think he was
Mhm.
P9. So
Yep.
like, I I think it was a good weekend for the Racing Bulls in that regard. So if you're thinking about the chain of events spawning from like the Christian Horner change of personnel, these are my thoughts. What are yours?
So I think the one big thing, and like with the mistake with Yuki and the pit call and everything, one of the really refreshing things with having Laurent Mekies at the helm for Red Bull was when he came onto the post race show and
Mm-hmm.
he fully took on the blame on the team for that happening to Yuki missing out, and similarly to like Lando's situation, having to pit a lap later because of Oscar being in P1 getting priority. He loses like 7 seconds on the lap just being on the old intermediate tires and not onto the slick tires. So I I don't think Christian Horner is, and from experience hearing him on the post race broadcasts and everything here and there, very rarely will take that on the chin and take that on the team, and would oftentimes redirect some of that, like the errors, onto the drivers, whether that's Liam, whether that's Yuki, whether that's Pierre, Alex. Like I think it was refreshing to hear him kind of take that on the team, and say, hey, yeah, we mess up and it costs Yuki his race here, unfortunately. But I think overall, like you said, I don't think that these things are necessarily just tied to who is new at the helm or anything like that. I do wonder with Max and his future, like the conversations and how much was involved with that. Um, at the same time that Christian Horner is being let go from the helm of Red Bull, Max is he flew to Sardinia and met up with Toto Wolff during the start of this little mini break and everything. Like he flew there, had a meeting with Toto, flew back, like uh and there's photos, there's like that people were stalking Max through this whole process and everything, and putting it on the internet so that I could vicariously stalk him. So
And if I just happened to take a look at it, like they were doing the hard work. They were doing the hard work. I was
exactly,
just looking.
it came up on my feed. I follow Max things. Like, what am I supposed to do?
I'm not the
Look
criminal
away?
here.
But no, I mean, I do wonder, because I know obviously there is the Thai ownership part of the Red Bull organization. Then there's the Austrian part of that for them that are kind of split amongst the board and making decisions and everything. So I don't know if maybe the worry of losing Max was enough to say, hey, like we've got to make some changes around here, try to keep him. Of course, Max and all the news about his exit clause and everything were basically that he would have to be in fourth at the end of this race weekend for that exit clause to activate. He is not. He's still ahead of George. So all of those conversations seemingly have washed away pretty quickly, with Max being expected to continue with Red Bull, at least through next season, but still, of course, contracted through I think 2028. So yeah, a lot of kerfuffle to kind of pan out to nothing, which I feel like happens pretty frequently in Formula One,
Mhm.
when you're tapped in when you've got that IV drip of Twitter coming through. But one of the other things that had come out through this break, Liam Lawson, with his recent solid performances with the Racing Bulls and everything, is looking like he'll most likely maintain that seat for next year. And of course, Isaac Hadjar, with how well he's been doing, I think everyone's kind of anticipating him to stay as well. Um, but yeah, the final kind of big note is that uh, Cadillac seems to be getting closer and closer to officially making their announcements. And at this point, it sounds like it will be the veteran partnership of Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, which we've kind of heard that things were leaning towards over the past few weeks. But that's starting to sound like those are the only names that are being brought up at this point in terms of those drives for Cadillac. So anything else would be kind of out of left field, but crazier things have happened. Um, so I would imagine maybe around the summer break or sometime soon that we'll probably hear some official confirmation. Um, I forget who, someone on the broadcast was trying to ask Valtteri about it this weekend, and he was like, it might have been Nico talking to him, and he's like, "What? What'd you say? I can't hear you." It's like, there's a lot of rumors going around. So brushed it off kind of humorously, but it sounds like a confirmation just by the way he was answering things, or at least a strong sign that Valtteri is going to be one of those drivers there.
Bro, I knew Valtteri Bottas was the Cadillac driver when he did that. When
The
he
little
did that,
video.
like the partner like Twitter post where he's like, "Damn, I could see myself driving in one of those." You
That's a
know?
nice seat there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like that's when my feelings were kind of confirmed in that regard. But no, I just thought it was funny. Like everybody's giving Nico Rosberg his flowers. Like, oh, these are the hard hitting questions we need. It's like, dude, he just Googled what rage baiting was and was like, oh, I could do that.
Oh, 100%. He fully just ready. His conversation with Jos Verstappen, where he's like asking about the Christian Horner firing, and Jos is like, "I have nothing to say." He's like, "What now? You got nothing to say?" I've
Yeah.
heard a lot of things from you about Christian Horner over the past bit. Are you sure? You sure
Just
about that?
trolling this like he's just a dad. Like he's literally here just like supporting Max. Like that's trolling him so
No,
hard.
Yos is not just a dad. Come
I don't know,
on.
man. I don't know, dude. You can't have ulterior motives in skinny jeans like that.
That's fair. That's fair. You're
There
he's
you go.
he's just there to relax and watch his son race. But yeah, so a lot of news in the different teams and shakeups of things over the past couple of weeks. And of course, as we're getting further into the season, I'm sure we'll get more confirmation of, especially some of the rookie contracts that will most likely be extended and whatnot. I think there's still a few that are outstanding, and some long-term driver contracts. I know George has been in conversations about extensions.
Mm-hmm.
I know we haven't heard about Kimmy. I don't think we've heard about Gabrielle Bortoletto either. So there's still, and of course the Racing Bulls and whatnot. So we've got a
Mm-hmm.
few seats to lock up. Um, but we'll just have to wait and see how things shake out the rest of the year.
Yeah, because we're like, yeah, just a little over halfway. So to be fair, I haven't thought about the contracts in a little bit. Yeah, really the Cadillac seats were the only ones that I was really like concerned about. But I guess you're right. They are just another team on the grid, and yeah, they're just gonna like announce their lineup just like any other team is going to. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, as because I think of course with the rookies, a lot of them just had like 1 year contracts initially, and then they'll look to do their extensions as the year goes on. But um, we'll hop over, look at some of the up and coming drivers that we have here and their weekend at Spa. But before we do that, we just want to remind you, if you are listening, if you are watching, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the follow button, subscribe if you have not. Tell your friends, tell your family. We love talking about F1 and all the world of motorsports and everything. So we would love to have you, your friends, your family, anyone who is interested in motorsports joining us to join in the conversation. But yeah, we appreciate you all, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, everyone, and back to the episode.
So that leads us here into the feeder series section. We had Formula 3 and Formula 2 weekends here at Spa. Formula 3, unfortunately, being cut short to just the sprint race, with the feature race being effectively rained out, unable to get underway with some incidents during formation laps, heavy downpours and rain and whatnot. So for the sprint race, um, we had a lot of good excitement. It was fun to watch throughout. But overall, we see Noah Stromstead have a really strong race, from the front of the pack, just managing, looking very good in the Trident, and Trident having a really strong weekend overall. All three of their drivers were in the top five on the weekend, so they seem to really have, um, not just locked in with Kamara, the championship leader, as they have throughout the year, but these other drivers that they have, Charlie Wirtz, Noah Stromstead, both showing that they have that race pace in the car as well, and that it's not, um, or that they can perform well in those instances, and maybe are just lacking a little bit in that qualifying one lap pace. But Kamara, of course, showing he's a very strong contender as well, working his way up the field a little bit, from his starting point a little bit further down. I think he started P10, to make his way up to P5 there in the sprint.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching Yugo Ugachukwu. I really enjoyed watching his race. I think he started like P6 or P7. I was able to get a whole bunch of overtakes done in the early stages of the race, all the way up to the podium. So I thought that was really exciting, from that angle. But then like the mid to late stages of the race, I was getting so excited watching the Kamara Solov head to head go
Mm-hmm.
down. They were just getting by everybody until they both get to, I think it was like P4 at the time in Del Pino. Or no, it must have been like P5, because Solov's able to get past him. Kamara gets stuck behind Del Pino, and Solov gets like 2 or 3 laps where he's able to like just put distance in between him and Kamara before Kamara gets the overtake. He's hunting down Solov the whole time, but I really do believe it was those crucial laps that Kamara was just stuck behind Del Pino, where Solov was just able to put the time in. But me, I was just hoping for more just wheel to wheel action between those two, because before they rolled up to Del Pino, it was a battle. So I was really enjoying that. And then what I really thought was fun, I think it was like around lap 9 or 10. It was Boya, Stenshorn, and there was another driver, I'm not sure, but they were like going 3 wide or close to 3 wide around the La Source hairpin, down towards Eau Rouge. The overtake, I think it was Boya on Stenshorn through Eau Rouge before they even get to the top of the hill. I'm like, dude, these guys are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, some of the overtakes were actually really exciting in the sprint. So that was fun for me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of excitement. It's fun because those cars, like sit like even with them being a bit slower than F2 and F1 cars, they're still flying through those sections and everything. It
Hmm.
was very fun racing to watch. And just my final kind of funny note, I guess, about the race weekend was Benavides, who took pole position for the feature race, but unfortunately wasn't able to. He picks up the only 2 points for the feature race for taking pole. But what is amusing to me is that since he's come in as a driver this year in Formula 3, his only points that he's scored are for getting pole position. He had
Oh,
two
well.
points for pole position in Austria, which I believe may have similarly been rained out for the feature race. No, that feature race was not one of them. Looking at the standings here, but yeah, he took pole position there, takes pole position here in Belgium, and those are his 4 points on the year. He did join a little bit late. He didn't race the first 2 weekends in the F3 calendar, but kind of funny that those are his only points, is just that one lap pace that he's been able to show here and there.
Yeah, that is quite surprising. But yeah, maybe he can expand on that skill. There are many tracks where, hey, if you can qualify well, that kind of does it for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a bad skill to be building on. But yeah, that's a pretty funny note.
Yeah, but two race weekends left here for the F3 calendar. We've got Budapest and then Monza. So we have this upcoming weekend, and then we have about a month between that race and Monza. So two sprint races, two feature races, 28-point gap between Kamara and Solov. So it's still up for grabs there, and then that even the P2 to like P5 is still within 18 points. There's still a lot of movement that could happen in that grid before we get the final standings here. Looking over to the Formula 2 race weekend, in the sprint race, we had a pretty exciting start with Fornaroli jumping from P3 up to P1 before the first corner. Just gets a phenomenal start, and he was
Destroys
gone.
them.
It was
Destroys
wild,
them. Yeah.
like seeing that, and they're like, and Fornaroli takes the lead. And I was like, wait a second, I had to rewind back to the start just to make sure that I was like he wasn't in P2, like he
I
wasn't on
did
the
the
front
exact same
row.
thing. I
And
did
then
the
I'm like
exact same
looking
thing.
for him. I'm like, okay, all right, bud. That's a pretty sweet move right out of the gate. So phenomenal start from Fornaroli in the sprint race. Um, is able to just kind of maintain that lead. Richard Verschoor and Lucas Browning get into a collision on lap one, knocking both of them out of the race. So championship leader Richard Verschoor, or should I say former championship leader after this race weekend, Richard Verschoor, um, getting no points there in the sprint race. And kind of a pretty interesting race. A lot of movement throughout, leading up to the kind of final climax where there's the contact with Cordeal and Victor Martins that brings out the safety car to end the sprint. But Alex Dunn was making his way up through the point, like into the points pretty well, and making some good moves. There were just a number of drivers who looked very good throughout that sprint race there, in the Formula 2 weekend.
Yeah, I thought the F2 sprint was pretty exciting. Yeah, obviously the biggest highlight was just that start from Fornaroli, and then a bunch of the overtakes were done like either down the Kemmel Straight or at the turn that's at the end of it. The name escapes you right now. So a lot of action like down that front half of the circuit, which is quite entertaining. But as far as the F2 races go, it was the F2 feature that had everything. Everyone's clamoring, for the F1 race to be, this wet epic, like, oh, just let them race out there, let it get crazy. It's like, Well, this is exactly what the Formula 2 race was. It had everything. You had like comedic spins, like where you know everybody's going to be safe. You have
Mm,
intense gather ups, like people almost losing it, like in crazy positions. You actually have people losing it in crazy positions. The epic overtakes at the base of Eau Rouge, like multiple times in the wet. Bro, these guys were going crazy. The F2 feature race was like genuinely the most exciting racing of the weekend. Like
yeah.
F1 sprint include like everything included. This was the best event of the weekend. And to my mind, like, yeah, that is racing at Spa in the wet. So breakneck, man. And it was a wild race right up until the end, obviously, where, well, I guess post race, where things have to shift around in that regard. It's kind of an anticlimactic end as well. But man, everything leading up to like lap 21, I guess it would have been a classic, truly classic racing.
Yeah, and that was pretty disappointing as like for me as well with just the post race stuff after a
Hmm.
super exciting feature race. Like you said, even with some comedic spins, Luke Browning coming out of the pit exit and everything
Hmm.
goes spinning around, but still ends up in the post race podium after the penalties to Alex Dunn, demoting him down to P9, Arvid Lindblad being disqualified for a tire pressure technical infringement. So kind of a disappointing situation for the two of them, but super exciting for Roman Stanek, who was P3, promoted up to P1. Ratomo Miata for ART, who gets promoted up to P2, and then Browning wrapping out that podium. Really big weekend for them, and exciting to see. Especially for me, Miata. Like I wanted, he's had some good moments throughout the season, but that was kind of that just massive weekend for him. He looked very good for the majority. Everyone had their little mistakes here and there, but still a very strong race from him. And then Lucas Fornaroli finishes P5, takes the championship lead from Richard Verschoor, who ended up not scoring any points on the weekend. Fornaroli gets a pretty nice haul here between the sprint race and feature race. So leading by 3 points heading into Budapest this coming week. But still 5 more race weekends left for Formula 2. So a lot of racing to go and a very tight field at the front from P1 to P5, a 12-point gap. So a lot is still up in the air there.
Yeah, and I think these guys are going to be fighting tooth and nail for literally every point they can get. These guys are so competitive. They're on the edge. Um, and while we still have some racing ahead of us, we've had some great racing behind us as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, just more to be excited for, especially going into Budapest. So yeah, just some great Formula 2 action specifically.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see what happens with Fornaroli because he currently does not have a team who he's a part of their junior program, from what I understand or what I've been able to find out there. So leading the championship, we talked about drivers going from winning the F3 championship and then potentially going on to win the F2 championship back to back. And so that is potentially in the cards, but with um, no current tie, so that I think leaves the door open for uh, any potential seats that are available to be a spot that he could end up if he does hang on and win this championship in Formula 2. But a lot of good racing left to go before we're there at the end of the F2 season.
Yeah, I very much agree. I'm looking forward now to get into the Formula One weekend. Obviously, may not have been everybody's cup of tea, may not have been everybody's favorite race weekend, and that's okay. We can get into all of that. But first, I want to put Aaron in the hot seat. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So for everyone playing at home, we got five multiple choice questions. We got three answers each, and we're gonna see if Aaron can get 5 out of 5 correct. We offer fake and amusing stakes. This is all just for fun and to learn something. So Aaron, are you ready to go?
Yep.
All right. And we're already learning something. We got a typo in the questions. All right, so question number one. The Formula One Belgian Grand Prix has been held at Spa Francorchamps for most of its time on the calendar. Which famous region is the circuit located in? Is it A, the Alps? Is it B, the Ardennes Forest? Or is it C, the Grand Canyon?
B, the Ardennes Forest.
He nails it. It is the Ardennes Forest in, like we said, beautiful Belgium. Question number two. A notoriously dangerous track. Throughout most of its history, extensive changes were made to shorten the track. It went from 8.7 miles to 4.3 miles and increase the safety on the track. What year did these changes occur? Very important. Was it A, 1979? Was it B, 2000? Or C, was it 2007? So significant shortening of the track going from 9 miles to 4 miles.
Um, gonna go A, 1979.
You are correct, sir. So, in the years leading up to this, there were many safety concerns. I'm just gonna put it lightly like that. So it was actually a big push from many of the drivers to have these safety concerns significantly considered. So yeah, important stuff for the history of the circuit for us to continue racing there, which is fun. So question number three. Arguably the most famous set of turns in all Formula One, nailing the Radion to Eau Rouge combination is crucial for driver lap times. What does Eau Rouge mean in French? Is it A, watershed? Is it B, slimy newt? Or is it C, red water?
C, red water.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Early in the pod career, I didn't know how to pronounce this. So now we've come all the way to actually knowing what it means in French. So this is fun. We're learning. So question number four. So many international championships like GT, World Endurance Cup, all use Spa on their calendars, but one may surprise you. This circuit has been used a few times by which famous human driven racing series? Is it A, the Tour de France, B, the Amazing Race, or C, the Kentucky Derby?
I didn't know that, but I'm gonna go with A, the Tour de France.
You are correct, sir. It was the Tour de France used, I believe, in the third stage of the race, so doing like a couple of laps on the circuit or something like this. So I thought that was just a notable piece of the history. And then question number five. Noted as the shortest race in Formula One history, this landmark race became Max's first win here at Spa. What year was this? Was it A, 1997? Was it B, 2015? Or was it C, 2021?
C, 2000, yeah, C, 2021.
Nails it.
Okay,
Yo, that is a 5 from
there we go.
5. This guy
I like
knows his
second guessed
Spa facts.
myself for a second on that last one, but whoo, yeah, that felt good.
Bro, you giggled at 97. Do you know the significance of 97 as well?
Is that when Max was born?
Yeah, that's his
Okay.
birth year. Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
All right,
that's
all good stuff.
solid. I like that. Spa's a great circuit, a lot of good history, and lots of things to bounce off of. So I enjoyed that one very much. Spa's a great circuit.
Yeah, I think if Spa was ever closer to Halloween, we might have a very different hot seat. So yeah, maybe we'll just keep that in the back of our mind. But
Okay.
I'm very interested to getting into the winners and losers. I'm curious who you may have. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Who'd you have for your winners?
Yeah, so and I told you this was kind of one of those things that was a little bit difficult to nail down. A lot of the drivers with the sprint race weekend that performed well during the sprint race didn't during the main race and vice versa. So my first winner on the weekend is Oscar Piastri. He had a very strong qualifying in the sprint race, taking pole position, does lose out to Max there, but of course is able to keep Lando behind to pick up an extra point in that title fight with his teammate Lando. So very solid there. And then going from P2, getting past Lando on the first lap of the main race, and then making the run to the finish just to that stint on the medium tires, just being able to be the tire whisperer and keep those alive long enough to get him to the end of the race. Whether that's a Pirelli issue or just Oscar's magnificence, either way, very, very big weekend for him. He picks up 8 points on Lando in that title fight. And so just really a massive weekend for him there in Spa.
Yeah, solid for Oscar. I would say, yeah, both in the sprint and in the main race. Obviously, like the car under them. So yeah, as long as they have the confidence and kind of the know how on track, yeah, they're definitely going to be able to deliver. So I really appreciate that, Oscar Piastri. I'll give you my driver shout as my first one. I really enjoyed watching Alexander Albon's weekend as a whole. Seemed like they may have been, or when I say that, I mean like his side of the garage, we could say. Seemed like they may have been struggling earlier in the weekend. Lack of practice sessions, making it hard to kind of hook everything up. So we see him, struggling a little bit in the sprint phase of the weekend, not getting it all together. But coming out of the sprint phase into like the main event qualifying and then the main event race, I think Alexander Albon really improved his position, finishing very close to where he started, up in the points, and then the confidence from him afterwards, believing that as long as like nothing goes wildly wrong in a race, like yeah, we should expect points every time out, no matter what the track. So I thought that was just big confidence from him to hear and for him to deliver on track, especially on a weekend where you know, pit lane start, things happen, technical gremlins, whatever. But on a weekend where Carlos Sainz, again, unfortunately, isn't able to deliver, we have Alexander Albon stepping up for the Williams outfit and I think doing really well. And just from a fan perspective, I just watch enjoying a weekend where like every session he was improving. You could see he was getting
Mm-hmm.
quicker, the confidence under him. So I really enjoyed Albon's weekend.
Yeah, and that's a great shout out there. His P5 qualifying, P6 finish in the main race is huge for the Williams team and for himself. Williams has had their hiccups throughout the year so far, so it's pretty awesome seeing him have that performance, and especially under kind of normal conditions and everything. Like that was just purely on pace. There were a number of drivers who did struggle a lot more than him in the qualifying session, and so turning that qualifying into points during the race is just huge for those midfield teams in general. Um, so yeah, great weekend for Alex. My second winner on the weekend, I was debating between Ferrari as a whole with the team, but ended up going with just Charles Leclerc. No shade to Lewis in terms of his main race. He really drove a phenomenal race during the main race to move up the field, going from the pit lane start all the way up, finishing P7. But the qualifying struggles that he had on the weekend were really kind of abnormal, whereas his teammate Charles P4 qualifying in the sprint race, finishes P4 there, P3 qualifying in the main race, finishes P3 on the podium. He now has just as many podiums as Max does on the year. So really big weekend for Leclerc and Ferrari to maximize, and he was able to keep Max behind him through some really kind of difficult points where Max had the pace, but just not enough overtaking speed on the straights in the wet weather. And then once it dried out, the Ferrari just had a bit better pace than the Red Bull on the weekend. So mega drive from Charles, very strong defensive and just good pace driving early, and then some great pace later on in the race as well. So I wanted to give some good props to Charles there for that P3 and the podium for the weekend.
Yeah, heavy focus from the Monegasque man. Like you heard from even early in the race session, man, he was like very what's the word, assertive. That's the word I was looking for. He was very assertive to his race engineering. He's saying like, look, these are extremely tricky conditions. He was saying like, unless this is like top secret priority, unless this is need to know basis, like don't say anything to me.
Yep.
That's how he comes into the session, and then under, this is to your point, under pressure from Max the whole time, who I think on pace likely P3 would have been a reasonable finish for him, but like you said, an incredible drive, defensive drive from Charles Leclerc. Like he's able to do that against Max in the same conditions as everybody else. Like he
Mm-hmm.
drove a more perfect race under significantly heavier conditions than Lando Norris was able to drive, like in seemingly free air. Like he was just making plenty of mistakes, just kind of in no man's land behind Piastri. So yeah, I think when you consider that element, I think Charles Leclerc drove an incredible race, honestly. And yeah, he was locked in straight from the start. My other winner was Ferrari as a whole. I think we've talked about it, just enough. I'll give my flowers specifically to Lewis. I thoroughly enjoyed watching that
Yeah.
first lap, second lap. That was a masterclass. He
Oh,
passed basically
100%.
everybody in the backfield, is just demolishing all the midfield cars, like barely even trying, right? So I really enjoyed watching Lewis's race throughout the whole thing. Gets up to the back of Alex Albon, and I think by this point they were managing some technical issue. There wasn't a whole lot on the radio for me to go on, so I'm not real sure what was going on. But I
Yeah,
think they were managing some type of issue, so
they
his
were.
like it
Yeah.
kind of got halted. But I really appreciated what Lewis did. Took that brake problem from early in the weekend. Yeah, just kind of shrugged it off and made a pit lane start into a points finish. I mean, if that's not quintessential just Hamilton, I don't know. I don't know what is.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, he had a great main race and really looked super strong. I think my only caveat for Lewis on the weekend was just that his poor qualifying kind of set him up in a tough spot. I think if he could have qualified better than with the conditions and how strong he looked early, I think there was a lot more potentially out there for him, at least in the main race, to snag. But overall, that pit lane to P7 is mega from him. So definitely a great weekend to at the finish for Lewis there. Um, but yeah, I think there were some radio things that I saw uh, actually just earlier today that I think they were having an issue with the fueling and were concerned about like maybe fuel deployment or whether there was going to be actually enough fuel to get to the end of the race. So there were some like interesting or kind of funky situations there for Lewis. But yeah, I definitely agree. At a strong weekend. I just think he could have been a bit stronger with some better qualifying there. Um, But over to the losers section, someone who struggled pretty heavily in qualifying. I had Kimi Antonelli as my first loser on the weekend. I feel for him. Like he's in a Mercedes that's clearly um, kind of sliding, not massively backward in the field. But George was talking at the end of the weekend about how his I think he was P5 maybe at the end, or P6 to finish something in there, P5, and how that was definitely like the maximum that he could have done. He was 13 seconds off max. He wasn't putting any pressure on. He's in that kind of Mercedes no man's land that they seem to have fallen into at the back of the top four constructors. And I think with the car not improving, as well as the just being a rookie and having these wet weekends and kind of things being just not coming as easily to him recently, Kimmy's started to have some struggles, and it's not shocking. I just hope he doesn't let it get to him too much in his mentality, because he is a very talented, strong driver. We've seen that with the sprint pole position earlier in the year. We know he has really good pace, but recently he's definitely had some struggles in the car, and this was just one of those weekends.
Yeah, and I do think that's fair. My one of my losers here for the weekend, Mercedes, just as a whole. You talked a lot about it, especially George Russell stating like they feel like that's kind of about it. We are kind of sliding backwards away from the Ferraris in that regard from Mercedes. A good number of points back now, and it doesn't feel like they're really in an aggressive position to start winning those back. It's kind of interesting. We thought the Mercedes was like, oh, maybe they're like this like cold weather car, maybe like they'll improve, but here we are at a cooler track on a rainy weekend, and they're not able to really convert that. So where we previously thought like, oh, these may be the strong suits, maybe not so much. So yeah, curious what may need to improve here for Mercedes. I've heard some thoughts, from the paddock, but yeah, overall, looking for just them to close the gap towards Ferrari a little more, because yeah, I think this weekend was not where they would have wanted. And yeah, I think to your point, Kimi Antonelli may be struggling just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the teams have started to diverge from their bringing upgrades and things for the rest of this year. So I don't know if the car will get or will change that much for them. But I would
Hmm.
just love to see Kimmy just have some consistent performances, looking pretty good in the points, like to just rebuild that confidence and everything before going into the upcoming year. He's shown he has a lot of talent, and so I just don't want this to kind of weigh on him too much. I feel like a lot of these rookies do get some pretty massive amounts of pressure put on them from the teams, the fans, and everything. So hopefully he can turn that around. But my second loser on the weekend was the Aston Martin squad, who I just hope that they figure things out week to week, and it seems so just drastically different week after week. We saw Fernando have a pretty good performance last race out, and then this weekend they're uh, starting around 13th, 14th, I think, in the sprint race, can't make their way into the points. Starting P19 and P20 in the main race before drivers are going and doing their pit lane starts and everything. So qualifying P19 and P20, but not really able to make their way too high up in the field there either. So another weekend of no points for them, while the other midfield teams here are starting to just eclipse them pretty quickly. We've had with Nico Hulkenberg's podium. We now have Aston Martin slipping down to P8 in the championship. So they're Williams, Kick Sauber, Racing Bulls all have surpassed them at this point, and then Haas is only 1 point behind them after Haas picks up the double points in the sprint race this weekend. So a really just um, not great weekend for the Aston Martin team, and they just don't. I Something is just not working well there, and um, it's bizarre to me how drastically it seems they fluctuate week to week with their performances.
Yeah, there's very little consistency, very little even like relativity to like between the drivers. Like you might even be able to understand if like they were both always whatever P17 and P18, but often it's this case of like Alonso being able to like do okay in some regards or have Lance really far behind, or it's like the opposite. So yeah, it never makes a whole lot of sense to me. And I feel like at this point, the only the only thing really keeping Aston Martin competitive is the fact that they have, you know, one of the most senior drivers in their outfit. That feels like really their only like value proposition right now, and like the only thing of value that they have to like increase their potential. I have a feeling they've probably forgotten about the 2025 car. Let's be honest.
Oh, 100% at this point. I can't
Right.
imagine that yeah, that they're still hanging on super closely to this year. But I mean, it does still make a difference overall at the end of the season in terms of
It
their
does.
financials and everything. So there has to be some prioritization towards this year still. But yeah, overall, it's just been a tough year. I mean, they Fernando's had some points recently, and then Lance had the big points early on in the season primarily. So it's I don't know. It's just such a mixed bag with them, and I just was not very impressed over this weekend here.
Yeah, it's tough to, you know, it's tough to get that fire lit for the Aston Martin flame. I'll tell you that. The other team that I really dislike seeing the weekend here was out of the Racing Bulls camp. I feel like I feel like the Q3 berth was just squandered. I didn't feel like they were really able to do a whole lot. I feel like Liam Lawson did an okay job, kind of individually, but it seemed like as a team they didn't really. They didn't really have it all together with the you know, Isaac Hadjar lack of performance, I guess you could say. So yeah, I dislike seeing that from the Racing Bulls. I feel like there's a little more there from them. And on such a changeable weekend, this would have been the perfect opportunity to scoop up some points. I'm unsure where the idea of the two stop came from, especially like when everybody's doing the one stop. You even have Liam Lawson doing the one stop. I struggled to understand that element. So yeah, I thought their Sunday was really tough.
Yeah, and I think that we saw some other driver, Nico Hulkenberg, similarly ends up going on to the two stop there as well. And I don't know if it was just tire deg was worse than they expected, or maybe
Hmm.
just coming out too hot after their pit stop. They used a little bit too much of the tire early on and didn't like ease those tires into their working window. But yeah, Hajar struggling in the main race. But ironically, they did pick up some points on the weekend. P8 for Hajar in the sprint, P8 for Lawson in the main race there. So it wasn't entirely brutal, but it could have been so much better. Like you said, two Q3 berths there um, for the main race, and then to just kind of squander that opportunity with Isaac when you see how that ended with Liam. I think there was a lot more on the table there, with especially with Bortoletto and Gasly being the two to pick up those last points positions there. That those are cars that Racing Bulls car could have beat on this weekend, and just unfortunately didn't work out there for Isaac. But yeah, not as good as it probably should have been for the Racing Bulls.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like a total failure on the
Oh yeah,
weekend or anything like this. Maybe like a like a C plus or a B minus or
but they
whatever.
lost out.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. I think my eye was just a little closer because we have the Laurent Mekies news and the Alan Permain,
yeah.
so there's like a little bit of that shuffle going on. But yeah, all good. Yeah, it's not the worst case scenario here. I'm curious, were there any other like teams or drivers or anything that you wanted to get into?
I mean, I feel like we've hit pretty much everything. The only thing that was of note otherwise was just the whole wet race situation and everything. I just and it's again one of those things where I just want at least a little bit of consistency somewhere with the stewarding and everything. Like we had the British Grand Prix in some pretty heavy rain and everything throughout that race. We saw all of the rookie drivers, minus Ollie Behrman, I think it was, crash out at some point during the race and DNF. So obviously, like that, those racing conditions are not quite what you want everyone to be racing in. However, this situation, the pendulum kind of swung too far the other direction, in my opinion. I felt like they could have gone racing sooner than they did. Both Max and Lewis were kind of begging to get the race started. Um, Obviously, being two strong wet weather drivers, not shocking that they're vying for kind of something that's a strength of theirs to get going. But I just don't know what the solution it is for these situations and everything, because that I don't know. Maybe here's my new thought for Pirelli, for Formula One, for the
Let's hear it.
FIA. No intermediate tire. You just like F2 and F3. You get the wet tire or you get the slicks. No in between. No, well, here's a tire that works in the wet and then becomes a slick tire if you drive on it long enough and the track dries out. No more of that. You get your wet tire if it's raining, or you can go on slicks. There's no in between. That crossover point and planning that out and figuring that out with your pit wall is crucial, so that you are not out there on a wet tire that's 7 seconds slower per lap or whatever. But uh the wet tire is the most useless thing in Formula One right now. It never gets used. If it's rainy enough for you to use a wet tire, they red flag the race because there's too much spray, or there's whatever, the visibility or whatever. Like if we're not going to race in wet conditions, we need to change something. Also, having a tractor going around the track with a leaf blower taped to the back of it is not gonna dry out the massive circuit of Spa. Like the every other professional racing series has like a truck that's got 35 massive like blowers on the back of it clearing water in the blink of an eye off these circuits, and we've got Joe's tractor from the farm down the road just toting around a little leaf blower doing absolutely nothing.
Doing the best they can.
This is the pinnacle of motorsport. Why like if like they have the finances to give them something better than that. Like, even if you're saying, oh, it's not circuit specific, these other circuits don't have anything better either that they use to clear the water off the track. That's not even a knock to Spa. Just in general, like, if we're like that did nothing to do anything to the track. It was a waste of time and energy to have that track. By the time that tractor makes it around one lap, all the water is just back where it was. It's doing nothing. So
Take to use the word nothing. That's all.
and it's making a minimal difference. We're doing worse for the environment than we're doing good for the circuit and that circumstance. So
Sure.
I
Carbon
just
carbon zero with that tractor. We're not going to get there. But
no,
no,
I
to
just
your point, totally
yeah.
fair. It's kind of ridiculous to wait like an hour and a half, and observing conditions that like seem raceable. You hear the driver saying like this is raceable, and then they continue to wait. Sure, I think there may be some, discomfort in that regard. Unfortunately, I don't think the tires are the problem. I think what they have is fine, like, but what you're like skipping past is like the visibility and the spray. It is exactly the visibility and spray that created the issues at, what was that, 23 Suzuka, where it was like rainy as all heck. A
Yeah.
tractor got left out on the track or like next
I
to
was
it.
still yeah, it was still getting Signs' car and everything.
That's
Yeah.
why.
Well,
That's why we don't go racing in like full wet conditions.
then they
And
need to
yeah,
figure that out because there's no
sure.
point in having the wet tire and like then saying if it's wet enough to use the wet tire, we're just not gonna race. Like there has to be a solution. Maybe it's because of the ground effect cars. Maybe that creates more spray with the wind being sucked under the car. Maybe that's shooting
I don't
out
know.
more. I really don't either. So maybe if the new regulations are going back away from that ground effect to like downforce, maybe that will solve part of the problem there. Um, but I mean, yeah, I don't know what the solution is either, but it just feels silly to like not silly to in terms of safety, but silly to have this unusable tire that we're basically like the intermediate is the wet tire. That is the only tire that we go racing on in the wet conditions, really.
Sure, you're like looking for what your point is the snowflake conditions of wet enough for the blue stripe tires, but also like safe enough to go racing. That's
Right.
like an unfindable
It's a
little like
unicorn.
Goldilocks zone, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. To use that one again. And that's totally understandable. I know they've tried like certain ways to help reduce spray in these things. Hopefully, just as just as things continue to get safer, maybe that is just something that we get. But unfortunately, and this is an element that people want to forget when they talk about like, oh, great racing in the wet. Yeah, you know what makes you remember them so fondly is all of the intense moments of people sliding into each other, sliding off the track, right? So it's the almost want
yeah.
for it to be inherently dangerous to like create exciting racing, but it's like, yeah, but I thought we were past that era. So like, can we stay past that era? Like, you feel what I'm
I
saying?
I feel like for me, and I think that creates chaos that some people consider exciting, but for me it's more like seeing the driver skill differential in those different conditions and everything. I think that being able to drive well in those conditions shows the some of the overall skill or maybe a different skill set of a driver that you don't see in normal conditions.
Mhm.
And seeing a max P17 to win in Brazil because he is just going out off of the main line and finding ways around people who are driving fine, just a bit more cautiously and everything. Like that had nothing to do with like any incidents or anything. That was just driver skill on full display for that race. But I also do understand when it comes to this individual circuit, that also plays into people's decision making and everything. It's a circuit that has a lot of great history and a lot of bad history with driver incidents and deaths and horrible accidents and everything. So I can understand, like I said, the pendulum swinging a little bit too far the other way, in my opinion, of when they should have gone racing. But it was swinging into that side of safety. So Lewis even said after the race, similarly, that he was like, yeah, I think we could have gone racing sooner, but they erred on the side of caution, and at the end of the day, like, you can't really fault someone for doing that. And so I definitely can understand, especially in that circumstance of where the race was and everything, that maybe came into people's minds a bit more of like, let's just play it safer. And fair game there. But I do still think there's an overall problem. We saw them try to fix this spray issue uh, a year or two ago with the weird wheel covers and things like that they tested out. And just overall, I don't know what the solution is, but I would hate to lose the opportunity to have some wet weather racing and everything. I don't want it to get to the point where they're just like, nope, we only race if it's like stopping raining and drying out. The only time you get wet weather is if it just happens to start raining mid race and it's not heavy enough to red flag it. Like there's I think a middle ground there that I would love for them to find. Um, but yeah, that was my only other kind of note from the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're valid in wanting, a more exciting race weekend, even if it is raining. Yeah, the risk to reward for wet weather racing, I don't think
Yeah,
is.
it's a tough line to draw.
Yeah, and it's like not obvious where it is at every event, and specifically, like you said, I do think it weighs on people's minds, like much heavier, involving this track specifically. Rest in peace to Antoine Hubert. Like that was only 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's very recently. So yeah, I think that factors in quite heavily as well. But yeah, hopefully technology as we go will just allow it like to get better. But for now, yeah, I think it's fine going the route that they are. Yeah, maybe a little more consistency, maybe just a little more proactivity, like you're saying with the tech. Maybe we don't have to have some local tractor driver with with his driveway leaf blower. Maybe we get some industrial leaf blowers on Joe's tractor next time. Like, let's just try that. Like these types of things. So believe me, I hear you. You have a
Yeah,
lot of valid concerns. It's yeah, it's just a tough one to get right, and that's for sure. To get right and for it to be fun for everybody.
right. Definitely. It's a weird gray area where I feel like it can be go like it could swing either way pretty easily and everything. So obviously I don't not disappointed with the safety. I just am disappointed that there's not the ability to do it safely in those conditions, I guess, or that we haven't figured out how to do it safely in those conditions. So,
Sure.
um, But yeah, I do you have any other final notes here for the Belgian Grand Prix race weekend?
I do believe we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the double points for Haas in the sprint, both for Esteban Ocon and Oliver Behrman. I thought that was a great performance. Bigged up by their team principal Io Camasso. Very pleased after the sprint he was. That's always fun to see. You know, Oliver Behrman I think is doing pretty well here in his true rookie season. Seems to be handling a lot of the pressures quite well. Like when he's talking in the media pen and stuff, you know, he's very well spoken, able to talk at length about what's going on in his race weekend. So yeah, love to see that. Love to see Haas. What feels like on a continually upward trajectory. So that's nice. So yeah, I just wanted to shout them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And really big weekend, especially like any points they can pick up in the race weekends are big. Like we said, they are 1 point now behind the Aston Martin squad there in the constructors standing. So those points that they picked up in the sprint race were definitely big for the team. So yeah, big shout out to the Haas squad there.
Hell yeah. But yeah, that's kind of all I had for the race weekend. Let's just talk about the podium here. Oscar Piastri P1, Lando Norris P2, and Charles Leclerc P3 to round out that one. Yeah, maybe not everybody's most exciting spa race, but you know what? Seeing cars go flat out up Eau Rouge over the Radion Hill, I'm sitting there on a Sunday morning just saying, what a blessing. What a blessing it is that we get to see racing on this circuit. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite. Yeah, I have to admit the modern races they haven't been that good. I'll admit it. I'll admit it. It's my favorite circuit. It's not the best racing. I know that, but I love it still and this was a fun one.
yeah. No, it's a great circuit, but let's hop on over to the cool down lap. And I want to start us off with just a mini update. The other week I had asked about uh some albums to listen to. I got some good feedback from Justin and John in the Discord channel. So if anyone has any albums I should check out, throw them in the comments section. I would love to hear it. But I checked out. I did check out two of the albums John recommended, and I listened through "Reasonable Doubt" by Jay Z, which you had recommended. I did enjoy "Reasonable Doubt." There are a couple of songs on there that are just like they slap, and they're still like bangers. I think overall, the old school rap vibe is not my favorite rap vibe, but I can also the style, the like
Continue. You're
okay.
fine. I'm just fucking
Yeah.
with you.
But the yeah, overall like I enjoyed it. The lyricism, the storytelling and everything that Jay-Z has throughout the album, I thought was very well done. It's very obvious why it's a pretty acclaimed album and everything. And I think being from 1996 like there it's clearly one of those historical albums that kind of have really built the genre for like it's kind of one of those cornerstones there. So I did enjoy listening to it. I think there are some songs that I'll probably throw into my mixes here or there, but I probably won't revisit the whole album too frequently. But it
Sure.
was nice to check out something a little bit new. From John, I listened through Sempiternal by Bring Me the Horizon again, which I it's an album I already love, but I was like I haven't listened to this in a while, so it was nice to listen through that fresh. Enjoyed that a lot. And then I listened to Pink is Better by Token, which he had recommended, which I felt like was pretty solid album, some good storytelling. I initially thought because he had recommended a another album that I'm going to get to that is a he said was a punk album. I initially saw this and thought it was Sleep Token, which is a
Mm.
pretty heavy band that does like the full makeup and crazy outfits and everything. So I was I went into it with that being my expectation, and I hit play and I was like, this is not what I thought it was, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. Some good storytelling, like it's a solid album from Token. I enjoyed listening through and everything. It's got some good bops, some good tempo and everything. So it was I I appreciate the recommendations to mix up my listening a little bit and get me just out of my monotony of music. So that was my little mini update there. But Justin, why don't you lead us here into our new cooldown lap segment that we're adding in for this week?
Yeah, happy to do it. Just a couple of notes on your cooldown lap. A little mini update here for the albums. The third one John recommended. It's called Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs. I gave that a listen while we were all having that conversation. I gave that a listen. Truly enjoyed it. To me, the lyrics really stood out. So Aaron, when you listen to it, I hope you do enjoy it because I did. I'm curious because I'm happy to have some of my favorite things dunked on live here on the show. What didn't age that well? I'm gonna put you on the spot. What didn't age that well on Reasonable Doubt?
Um, it wasn't as much that it didn't age that well. It's just the boom bap, like
Hmm.
slower paced, like rhythm and everything that kind of carries through the majority of the album that is just not my
Mm.
personal favorite like style of rap. It's not anything that I didn't think necessarily aged well. Or I mean there were a few lyrics that definitely did not age well. Um
No way. It's money all the
definitely
way through.
definitely throws a couple of slurs for the LGBT community in there that I don't think most people would be willing to say anymore.
Sure.
However, different time. I was not looking at it as a uh, any sort of negative Jay Z. It's just a a part of the era that it was written in. But no,
Word.
it
So
was
you appreciated it, just not your like personal style.
right, exactly.
Okay,
So
all good,
yeah,
man. I can live with that.
nothing. Yeah, no, wasn't trying to dunk on it. Just yeah, there were that style of the slower pace and everything. Like I like it to mix up a little bit more, have a little bit more fat. Like I'm okay with the slower pace and all if there's some mix in for me with the like faster, more upbeat tempos and whatnot. So, but overall, I definitely like appreciate it as a solid album.
Of course, of course. Happy you gave it a listen. Happy to hear about it. So, new cooldown segment that we're doing. We're lovingly calling it Tiny Pockets. Tiny Pockets. I really like the name. What we're going for is like small, maybe niche communities that we see, or maybe just like small niche things that we're into that we want to talk about. Maybe we think they're niche and they're like the most popular thing in the world. I've got no clue. But sometimes I see things in my world and I think, hey, I need to tell Aaron about that. So this is going to be a space for this. And on the first one, I'm gonna tell Aaron about something that he already knows here, but the beauty of it is, uh, it's a wonderful thing. This is one of my favorite mods online for the racing game. It's called Assetto Corsa, but it is the Shutoko Revival
Mm.
Project. I'm gonna say that again because I love it so much. It's the Shutoko Revival Project. It's a mod that a community has built for, like I said, the game is Assetto Corsa, where it brings you a section of a Japanese highway to life in the game of Assetto Corsa. It's like 1-to-1. The skyline's beautiful. So like the skyline of the buildings, and then also like the sky box that you have. There's like a rotating 24-hour clock, so you can drive it like at all times of the day. So you can go from like night to dawn with like, sun bright yellow over the horizon. It's just a really, really well made mod. It's so much fun to just spend time in. And what this really says is I'm just so privileged that I do a commute for fun. I'm like, ooh, let me just like drive a car on a highway for a while. Like, let me just unwind and relax. Most people, they have to do that like for their day job, and they hate it. But you know what? It's like it feels really good to me to do. And I'm just so thankful for the Discord and the community. It gets constant love. It gets constant updates. They're always working on it. It has an active community, like I said, on the Discord. So it's just been such a fun place to be. Some of the just funny interactions that you get with people just tearing down the highway. Just everybody's there for a good time. So this is a fun, very enjoyable tiny pocket of mine that I like to get into, and that's this driving mod online where I can hop in my seat and play pretend with my racing wheel. It's very good fun.
No, that's definitely cool. And you have told me about it a bit before, but I think it's neat that they have such a community around this. Like you can just go out and just like mindlessly just shut your brain off and go and weave in and out of cars and zip around and everything. Does it just loop back on itself, or like how long of it, like how's that work?
There's a whole bunch of different routes that you can go, so and like they're all like all the routes are color coded like when you look at them on the map, so you can kind of figure out like big loops that you can do. Some of them are like actually easier than others, where you can just kind of go like just six gear all the way flat, just weaving. Some are like a little more technical. There's like tunnel sections, so like
Okay,
bro, you can go for a while. It's pretty cool.
that's
And some
neat.
people like race, they like reset themselves, just tear down the highway. Like, oh man, people just getting up to no good. It's so fun.
That's cool. Well, at some point, hopefully before too long, I'll have a little bit of a racing setup here. Maybe I'll join you out there. But for my tiny pocket this week, I wanted to talk about just the 5K that I did, and it was interesting seeing because like the running community is like one community that I've been a part of and around for my entire life pretty much, and the EDM community, with this being a 5K that Diplo put on, is like I have not seen a lot of crossover other than knowing that a lot of runners listen to EDM when they run because it's just the beats and the you can keep a rhythm and things like that.
Hmm.
It's easy to run to. Um, but seeing this like combination 5K and then like an EDM show afterwards for all of the people who ran and everything was really interesting because I think it got a lot of people out there running, and this was kind of the goal of the of Diplo when he created this, like his run club, which is going to host events all around the country. um there were a ton of people there that are just EDM people who have probably never run a race in their life, and they went out and did a 5K, and that was pretty cool to just see because you can, like, as someone who's run for most of my life, you can kind of tell whether someone is like a big time runner or not, or maybe it's their first time or whatnot. But to kind of meld those worlds together in this event and everything was pretty cool. I didn't expect to necessarily ever run a 5K with Colleen and like her cousin and his wife and their group of friends that go to EDM festivals and shows and stuff like that together often. I see them and I like to hang out with them, but never really expected to in that kind of setting. So it was just a cool little crossover of war, like kind of niche worlds combining that made that an even, I guess, smaller kind of crossover to some extent, even though it was about 6 to 7 thousand people overall, but um, pretty neat event there.
Do you know, did Diplo run in the 5K? And
He
did
did.
you beat Diplo?
I don't know if I beat him. To be
Oh.
honest, I didn't know what he looked like until he was up on the stage.
Oh.
So I don't
So you
typically
can
like.
claim that you may have ran a 5K faster than Diplo.
I'm sure the results are probably out there. I might be able to find them. But uh, at least right now in my head, I don't know.
I
I
can't
I
believe
was
that's not the
happy with.
first thing you thought of, is
It
beating the
was,
guy
but
that put
there
it
there
on.
was not there was not a like results page that was easily accessible like on the
Okay.
race website and everything. I went and found my own like results later. Um,
Gotcha.
but
It
I
wasn't about the finishing position. It was about the friends we make along the way.
I mean, I was pretty happy with my it, but again, this I guess speaks to kind of the fact that probably a lot of people that did this 5K were newer runners or maybe not runners in general. Like, I ran a time that I was happy with at this stage in life as a 31-year-old that I would have been devastated to have run as a 17 or 18-year-old because I was much quicker back in the day than I am now. And I was
Surprise.
still I was like in the top 300 of six some thousand people, and I ran a time that I was like should not have, in my opinion, been like that high up in the finishing positions, I guess.
Gotcha.
So overall, like I think that kind of also signaled to me a little bit in my mind of knowing like no, I got smoked by, or like I should have gotten smoked by a lot more people in my humble opinion, um than I did. So I think that was like oh, like yeah, this is like really bringing in people who maybe are newer to running or haven't done that as much and kind of bringing them into that community. So yeah, neat
That's
event
great.
overall, and my legs were definitely tired after the race and dancing a little bit to some EDM music. So a fun weekend event.
That's very cool. I think this was a very successful Tiny Pockets. We'll look to throw this in the rotation. You know, we didn't just want to hit you with the same, you know, chocolate and vanilla ice cream every single off week. You know, we're just two humans over here. You know, what's it really gonna be? But honestly, this was a great episode, and I'm happy to catch up on all the race shenanigans we had going on, all the IndyCar, all the, well, you know, it was kind of a packed weekend for Formula One as well, with all the, you know, Formula Two and Formula Three events as well as a sprint. So it was packed, and I'm happy to go through it. I think it was a good one.
Yeah, I had a blast talking just through everything, all the normal quick hitters, fun stuff, getting into the race, and then tiny pockets, of course. So we hope that you all enjoyed that too. For all of you listeners out there, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Tired Boys podcast. Um, and yeah, keep an eye out for upcoming episodes.
Hungary next weekend. Join us on Monday for the Twitch stream. Join us Tuesday morning for the audio and video release. Thank you very much, everyone. Peace out.
See ya.